As a cadet, Cap had just begun his first season as a defensive starter for Air Force football when his world was turned upside down by a crucible moment.
September 17th, 2017 will forever, stay with my family. I ended up getting a call that my brother he's not breathing, and it appears he is no longer with us. I had about a 45-minute to an hour window where I thought that was completely the case. Again, the last I heard was he was lifeline evac in a helicopter. He got in a motorcycle crash. They didn't know the extent of the details. It was in the Sierra foothills in Northern California, and that's all I knew. That changed the trajectory of our entire lives.
My guest today is Captain Garrett Kauppila, United States Air Force Academy, class of 2019. A man whose leadership journey was shaped in a way few of us can imagine. Cap learned about the fragility of life, the danger of taking even a single conversation for granted, and the importance of showing up with passion and gratitude every day. That perspective now defines Cap as a leader and as a mentor to our cadets at the Air Force Academy. In this episode, he shares the lessons learned in the hardest of circumstances, the power of authenticity, the discipline of not taking life's moments for granted, and the conviction that true leadership begins with respect for others, no matter their title nor rank. So stay with us, because Cap's story is more than a testimony of persistence and staying power. It's a call to live and lead with purpose. Cap, welcome to Long Blue Leadership.
Thank you very much.
We're so excited to have you. We want to go right to the moment your brother was in a motorcycle crash. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so September 17th, 2017, I ended up getting a call that my brother was dead. That was the simple phone call. It was that he's not breathing, and it appears he is no longer with us. I had about a 45-minute to an hour window where I thought that was completely the case. Pretty surreal moment. I can't say that I remember every detail of that feeling, but time had passed. I was trying to call people and figure out who could be there, who could be around. My uncle was the first one to arrive at the hospital, and again, the last I heard was he was lifeline evac in a helicopter. He got in a motorcycle crash. They didn't know the extent of the details. It was in the Sierra foothills in Northern California, and that's all I knew. Lifeline evac, unconscious, not breathing. He ended up surviving. He woke up in the hospital. My uncle was there. I ended up getting a phone call, and I got the chance to speak to my brother on the phone. And I talked to him, and at first, I'm just in panic. Oh my God, he's calling me. He's actually alive. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Get on the phone with him, and he seemed normal, beyond normal. And I had this realization that results matter less than expectations sometimes. If I expected that he was alive, I don't think I would have had the same relief. But because I had the thought that he wasn't, that feeling will live within me forever. So I get the chance. We're talking on the phone. He's actually telling me about my game, and he was so excited to watch me play. I asked him about his day and his accident, what happened. He had no idea, right? When traumatic things happen in your life, sometimes it creates just a blackout.
Right.
Even before, he didn't even remember, some time before the accident happened. So he couldn't tell me what happened, how it happened, any of those details. But we went back and forth, kind of talking, exchanging a couple laughs, in fact. And I actually got a phone call then from Coach Calhoun, who was, kind enough to reach out to me just to tell me that, hey, Cap, if there's anything we can do, I know there's a lot going on. Well, when he called me on the phone, it's not typical as a player. You just get a rogue phone call from the head coach. So in that moment, I'm on the phone with my brother. We're laughing. We're enjoying time. It feels normal for all intents and purposes. I think I took him for granted. I think you go from this feeling that he is not with me to he is completely normal. And that dichotomy, that strong polarization of feeling that I had, led to, I guess, complacency. I took him for granted in that moment, I perceive. And, if I could have gone back, I never would have answered the phone call. Appreciate and love Coach Calhoun for calling me, but I just would have soaked in that moment with him.
Right.
And I didn't even think twice. I was like, oh my God, hey, Kyle, I'll call you right back. Kyle's my brother's name. I'll call you right back. He's like, okay, no worries. Yeah, just call me back. Cool. Hung up, answer the phone with Coach Calhoun. He was so lovely, just supportive, just saying, hey, we're all here for you. Anything you need, just let us know. You, your family, anything.
Right.
Wonderful. I go to call my brother back. Okay, hey, he's asleep. Okay, no worries. Kyle fell asleep. It's been a long day. He's exhausted.
Yes.
Little did I know that was the last conversation I'd have with him for a year. And so he had a stroke. He then was induced into a coma. My brother was in a coma for, if I remember right, I don't remember if it was a day, 2 days. It was a couple of days. And that was the last I spoke to him. And then it was, is he going to survive?
Wow.
And I had just hung up the phone. I did not say I love you, which is something I always think that I say to my loved ones, and I didn't say it in that moment. And I'll forever regret that because I never knew if I'd say it again. And so that was very, very difficult.
Wow.
I was here at the Air Force Academy now, and I was, I guess I was ecstatic after my first start, preparing for my second. And then life came at me quickly, and it was, what am I? I mean, I need to go home. I need to be gone. Process the paperwork for administrative turnback. Thankful for the people in my life that helped support me in that, namely Colonel Harding, Coach Calhoun were pivotal. Also, Colonel Pendry was pivotal in that process for me. But we processed that paperwork, and then I called my parents. I'm like, hey, am I coming home? What's what we're doing? My parents said, he can't do anything here. He's, for lack of a better word, I hate this term, but he was vegetated. There was no movement, no speaking, no, there was nothing.
Right.
So there was nothing I could necessarily do to support them in that exact moment. So my parents, were like, hey, continue your dreams. That's what he would want for you right now. So that's what I did. And I spent, my next couple of days still trying to exist and be normal. It was actually near Prague, tests are ramping up.
Goodness.
I'm pulling all-nighters. I can't sleep. I don't know how he's doing. We end up playing a game the next Saturday against San Diego State, who's actually ranked number 22 in the country at the time. And it was at home. I dedicated that game. I remember posting something on my Instagram saying this game is, for my brother with my brothers. And so it was kind of that moment I realized that, it's okay to play for the name on the front of the jersey and the name on the back of the jersey.
Right.
Both matter. And I'm really thankful that we have our names on the back of our jersey, because at the end of the day, that's part of the reason we do what we do. It's part of what keeps us motivated. And in that game, things are going up and down. The game was crazy. There was a monsoon. We had a 2-hour delay.
Oh my.
My parents are watching it from the hospital bed, in fact. And I ended up blocking a punt in the fourth quarter. And on that play, I snapped my collarbone, clean in half. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm just being weak. Let me keep going. I'll keep playing. I try to tough it out. I kind of play the next series. And in fact, I do something that harms our team. I'm not fully there. I'm in a lot of pain. I can't really tackle the right way. End up coming to the sideline, and I remember telling the coaches, the medical trainers, I was like, hey, Kaz, I snapped my collarbone. He goes, okay, don't be dramatic. He knows what it looks like when people traditionally do that. He felt it on my shoulder pad and was like, oh my God, it's, we're talking
broke.
nearly compound. Like, it is, the corner of my bone is up in my trap situation. That moment, life was like, all right, time to go home. Call it what you want, call it a bigger purpose, whatever that may look like. It was time for me to go home.
Right.
It was a difficult time. It was a very, very difficult time. And I couldn't be more thankful to have had the opportunity to go home and handle what I needed to handle. Sometimes nothing makes sense until you're like, the bones are right. Not to make that pun, right? The bones are right. And then my collarbone had everything to do with like the core of my family. There was no way I could have succeeded, in my life as a cadet. When the big things are wrong, none of the little stuff is going to matter. So I had that opportunity. I became my brother's, his word, not mine. He called me his parrot, because I knew him so well that I knew what he was thinking and feeling, and he didn't speak. My brother, when he got out of the coma, they didn't know if he would speak again. He didn't speak, in fact, until the next spring. So not quite a year, but it still wasn't conversational at that point in time. So I was his parrot, as he would say.
Yeah.
Not his parent.
Yeah.
The older brother would never let me go claim that title. But yeah, I was his words. People would look at him and ask him a question, and he would look at me and give me a demeanor, and I was like, here's what's going on. Here's what he's feeling, thinking, etc. He doesn't have memory of those about 3 months of his life, which is pretty surreal to think. So that was a moment that turned my world upside down.
Yes. I mean, literally, I'm thinking through all of that you shared. There was a series of things that happened. I mean, my goodness, I guess the first question that comes to my mind as I was listening to you and soaking in that story is, how did you change in that moment? Because you went, on a phone call from being on a high to a low, complacent to like, what literally changed in you because of this? Yeah,
the moment that I realized that could be the last conversation I ever had with my brother, and I didn't say I love you. That made me never take another moment for granted. And it's the littlest things in life that it's so easy to take for granted. And that's a cliche statement, but genuinely, I don't take for granted the ability to use my right hand. I don't take for granted the ability to write my name. My brother can't use his right hand, right? He's my older brother. He turns 30 here in a couple of weeks, actually. He's still working on reading and writing. Those are things we take for granted every single day that I no longer do. And I hate that it came at his expense. I don't believe everything in the world has to happen for a reason. I don't think that he had to go through this at his expense for me to learn these lessons. But I know that I can find a reason for why everything happened, right? I can take a positive away from things about our relationship, about our family, but I don't believe it had to happen at his expense. It happened to happen at his expense. So with that, we have to take in our sphere of influence. What is now in my control? It's something I talk to the cadets about all the time. There's a lot of things happening in life. There's a lot of things happening around you that aren't necessarily what you wanted. They're not in your control either. But the reality is, where are you at now? Where are your 2 feet? And how can you come to play? What can you do with your present resources, your tools, your current situation? And so, in those moments, I went home and my mom would always tell me, the Air Force Academy impacted me. I didn't realize it, but in her eyes, my ability to come home and step into the figure that I became for my family in that role, while everything felt like it was in shambles. Unfortunately, after my brother's accident, a couple weeks later, my grandfather passed to a heart attack. And it was just like one thing after the next between his accident, my injury, and then my grandfather passing. And it was like my dad was with his father. Now I was with my brother. My mom is trying to provide for our family and still make sure our house doesn't get foreclosed, right? While also trying to support all of us. And so, she's always appreciative of my presence and being able to do that. I'm always thankful that the Air Force Academy supported me in being able to do that, because those moments I'll say, they'll stay with me for the rest of my life. And I never would have been the man that I am if I hadn't had those experiences with him. He then proceeded to live with me for 3 years in Los Angeles, right? My brother and I are very, very close. So, again, it happened at his expense, and I'll never be grateful for the fact that it took that experience for me to learn these things. So I ask for everybody to, hear that story or hear others like it, and try not to take the loved ones, the people in their life for granted, no matter how big or how small the moment may feel. Right. But also don't take for granted the ability to do the little things you do in your life.
Talk me through, how did you end up at the Air Force Academy now as one of the management instructors?
Yeah. So the GSP slot was, with the intention of, your department releases you from your assignment. Okay. You go do you do grad school, and then I would do one, operational assignment intervening tour, as they like to call it. Okay. And then come back to the academy to teach.
Talk about when you knew that this was your passion, teaching.
Ooh, yeah. That started long before. It didn't happen when I was here. Okay. I had a teacher that greatly influenced me. His name was Mark Hardy. He was my AP microeconomics teacher in high school. Wow. As a 17-year-old, I had never had someone that influenced me so much in terms of just the charisma that he had, the consistency, the man that he is every single day. It inspired me to want to be the same for other people's lives. And I think it's easy to not appreciate the weight that someone can have, especially as a teacher, right, at the high school level, how many lives he's actually impacted. I think he had like 240 students that year. Wow. And he's been there for decades, right?
And he still made that influence on you where you felt a connection.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember, every single day, came into the classroom, he had music on, he would shake our hand, he knew all of our names, he would have us all switch seats. Ask my students to this day, that is still what I do. Every single time, and every single time there's a test, I play the final countdown. That came from Mr. Hardy. Wow. So, that's my thing. I make them all move seats. I make them get to know each other's names. I know all of their names on day one when they show up. Really freaks them out at first, but I think it's something special. It says you care. I know in life people do not care about what you know unless they know how much you care. Another cliche, but my way of doing that is by first day of class, I shake all their hands and say hello to them by name. And they're like, we met? I'm like, no, we have not.
Right. But we have.
But now we have, and I think that they'll remember my name too. Right. And so oftentimes when you're the teacher, it's easy for them to remember you. It's not as easy for you to remember them. So you make that initiative. You show that that's your intention on day one, and it resonates with them. To me, that's a style of leadership. I think it establishes. I look at power, power structures, and there's kind of a couple core power structures. There's 5 main ones. There's legitimate power. Right. There's like reward-based power. Right. There's coercive power. There's expert power, and then there's referent power. So then the ones I really focus on, I fixate on that, and I think about all the time, this idea of expert power, expert leadership, and referent power. Right. Right. And this idea is that if you're an expert, people listen to you because you're knowledgeable. Right. That's worth something. Right. That's worth something to have you on the team. Right. You're the expert of a topic. But what's even more powerful than that is if someone follows you, believes in your message for the sole purpose that they admire you. Right. You're something about you that exhibits. They see themselves in you. They want to be like you.
Like you did to your teacher.
What'd you say?
Like you did for your AP economics teacher.
Absolutely. Mark Hardy, he had referent power to me. He was someone that, I looked up to. And now I hope I exhibit some of his traits of, caring about people first. Right. If you can show people you really care, you're going to make mistakes. But if you stay consistent in your path, you have a motivation, you have a North Star that you are going towards, and you do so with conviction. Early on, you're going to threaten people. Early on, you're going to get haters. But as time goes on, as people are looking for that guiding North Star, if you're unwavering in who you are, I do believe people will want to join that train. Right? If your tracks stay true, people will eventually look at it and say, you get what you expect. What he says is what he does. And I believe it. Right. And eventually that's the path that I want to lead others down. Right. And so I think if your morality is guided the right direction, along the way, people are going to hop off board, but you're going to get a lot more people joining. And so that referent power, that true leadership that says, if we took the uniform off, this person would respect me the exact same. That is what I put weight on, right? It's not a matter of rank, right? In fact, right, generally speaking, like, what is a captain at the Air Force Academy? Right. There's not a lot of legitimate power coming from, right? You're Snacko, right? If we're being frank. So we're not at a normal base. We're not in a maintenance squadron where that may be a significant leadership role. So I think that what it comes down to is treat everyone the way you want to be treated. Respect all, fear none. And
wait,
this
say
is
that again.
Respect all, fear none. And the idea is that I genuinely don't believe I treat a 4 degree different than I would treat, my boss who's an 06. They walk by my office. It's, yes, ma'am. How can I help? Yes, sir. How can I help? What's going on? And it's absolute respect, but it's not, you're not treating people as though they're different than, less than, etc. They're all the same. If you treat everyone, you have a standard to hold everyone, hold yourself to the level of responsibility that you treat everyone with respect, but not fear. Right. I remember sitting down. You and I, you did the run back from, from Jack's Valley.
Back?
I did the march back.
Yeah. Oh.
I did the march back. You did the run back with Arden. And I wasn't willing to run at that moment. But I remember we got back and we got to go to Mitchell Hall with the basics. And they asked me for a piece of advice. And I kind of told them, and this sounds too lighthearted, but it's just true. The basics, they're being led by our rising 2 degrees. Right. Do the rising 2 degrees actually believe that they are in a place where they should have that much power over people? They kind of laugh about it, right? They know, like, whoa, this is weird that I have so much control over human beings.
They're reflecting, like, 2 years ago, I was them.
Sometimes they're younger than them, right? Pryor comes in that's been there, done that, seen real things. And here comes the 2 degree, which was me, right? I was the 19-year-old, and there I am, like, leading, flight and basic training. It's almost comical to them that they have the ability to do that. Right. So what I told the basics is, I was like, hey, guys, just so you know, guys, gals, right? Respect them. Be respectful. Never waver on that. But you don't need to fear them. They too struggle with things. They too have pain, have life happen to them. And by the way, the same with me. Yeah. I was like, I'm a captain. What does that mean? I promoted twice. Woohoo! I promoted twice and didn't get in trouble, right? I mean, I'm not that different than them. Right. They're all going to graduate from here too, and they're going to end up in the same shoes as I am. So no, anyway, my perspective is just that I'm a captain. Whoop-de-doo, right? I too have things that I'm struggling with my life, that I'm working on every single day, trying to be a better version of myself. So I ask for their respect, but I don't hopefully have to ask for it because I'm already showing them that and reciprocating that. And so I think it becomes a natural state of your existence and the rooms that you're in.
So I have to ask, have you had a cadet that you've seen or has come to you and basically views you as having that referent power? Have you had a cadet share a story, or have you actually witnessed someone kind of taking on things that have come from you?
That's a great question. I've had a actually interaction yesterday that meant a lot to me. She's an incredible person, leader. And we were talking about, she was preparing for her GSP interviews. She's a stellar student. She's a great military leader. And
what does GSP stand for?
GSP, graduate school program. We're very creative, right? As you know, at the Air Force Academy, just like M&T
I
Day,
knew it.
Monday,
I could probably
and
figure
Tuesday
it out
was,
yes, M-Days.
Graduate school program.
Okay.
But for the managed department, which is the same slot that I earned, in December of 2019. Okay. And so she came in to talk about it, and they needed to, they were going to teach the department something about leadership, right? About their experiences at the Air Force Academy and how they would use that experience to reflect on, their cadets as if they wanted to be an instructor. At the end of the day, it's a grad school slot, but it's also, we're hiring someone to be our colleague, right? To work with us, to inspire the next generation of cadets. Right. And we sat there and we talked about this idea of how much she cares. And she talked about a story as she was the squadron commander in basic, right? Which is, right, not the flight, but like the 5
right.
the 5 flights,
yes.
right? She was leading the squadron. And this year I think it was the first time, they actually were 6 weeks in that role.
Oh.
So it wasn't 3 weeks and then it transitions to a new one. They wanted to create some cohesion.
Okay.
So the flight commanders changed out.
Because they're putting a lot of the effort and the focus on the squadrons. Yes.
Yep. So the squadron commander and the director of operations stayed for all 6 weeks of basic.
Okay.
So she was, the person for those 5 flights of basics.
Right.
Like that was their leader for the whole 6 weeks. And, she's not a large presence. She's not an intimidating person, but she's a caring, charismatic leader. Mm-hmm. And because of that, when she says something, people listen and it carries weight. And she told me she came to me because she felt as though I exhibited those same things that she feels within herself. It's funny because, sometimes presence, like someone has a larger presence or a smaller presence by stature.
Right.
Sometimes they utilize that to try and create coercive power, legitimate power. I try to like drop the swords and shields as soon as I meet anybody, right? Try to make it as calm, as comfortable as you can. Mm-hmm. And so when we were talking about that more, she told me a story that she was actually on the obstacle course trying to do everything with her basics because that's the type of leader she is. She tore her ACL on the obstacle course, and her basics watched her fall off the equipment in pain, in struggle, and just we talked about. I was like, gosh, were you not thankful that you are a kind, charismatic, caring leader? That's your leadership style, because they reciprocated that immediately. Could you imagine if she was just demeaning, demoralizing person?
They'd be like, haha, she got what it came.
That's how it would feel. It would absolutely feel that way. Right. If that was the way that she led. Mm-hmm. And she remembers going back. She said she went back to the lightning shelter and sat there with other basics that were broken and sat down with them and just said, "How are you guys feeling?" They felt, out of place. They felt bad. They weren't able to contribute and support their classmates and whatever. And she goes, "I get it. I really get it." It's so easy for us to think we know someone's story, to call someone an F-18 pilot. I don't know if that term existed, right? The idea that you are skipping out of things. Do you really know? Do you really know what's going on? You probably don't. Good point,
you don't.
I know I was fresh out of knee surgery, actually, when I showed up to basic training. I had gotten knee surgery my senior year of high school. It's probably the reason I ended up here. Some other things fell by the wayside, and I came to the Air Force Academy. People could say anything they want, but I know when a cadet comes into my office to work with me, they say, "Hey, Captain Cap, can we do this? We're going to change. Can we change this class and change this major so I can?" And sometimes I just want to say, "No, you can't do that." Mm. But instead, I don't say that. I say, "Why? Mm-hmm. Why do you want that?" And what I learned by asking why and asking why again is there is a root cause of these things. And when we address the root cause, because you actually care enough to ask them, we can usually fix the problem, and then we don't need to do any of those things.
Right.
And so you get to the root of what someone really has going on in their lives, and it's just proven to be so worth it for me. Every single time I get the chance to do it, I've learned that if I can pour a little bit into someone's glass, okay, first of all, don't pour from an empty glass. If you're empty within yourself, right, like I was when I left to go home and be with my family, I didn't have energy for everybody else in that moment.
Right.
Trying to pour from an empty glass is that's not a sustainable effort. Fill your glass to the top. Make sure your people, your family, and yourself are squared away and good to go. But at that point, when you have an abundance of water in that glass, pour from it. It's the most rewarding thing in the entire world. And I realized this, and I think everything in my life leading up to that point created this, whether it was the highs of life, the opportunities presented to me through the Air Force Academy, through travel, through football, whatever that may have looked like, but then the lows of life that rooted me in gratitude. And what I realized is happiness, and this is my little theory, is that happiness is a box. Okay, I consider it a box of happiness. The amount of happiness you actually feel in your life is the area of that box. So many people are they're so focused on raising the ceiling of the box, right? Raise the top. The problem is
accomplish more things.
Accomplish more things, create more opportunities.
Okay.
That'll raise the ceiling of your box.
Okay.
The problem is if your gratitude dissipates along the way,
your area never increases.
Yeah. So what happens is oftentimes people create more opportunities for themselves in their life, and they take for granted all the places they've been and all the places they were. And so because of that, the gratitude dissipates as your opportunities increase. You never become happier. And they wonder why it's not so happy at the top and cheery, because they weren't rooted in gratitude. If they never leave the ground and they keep the base of their box, in fact, they continue to drive that base of the box down into the ground while they create more opportunities, you will have more height to your box. But what about the width?
I was going to say, what about your gratitude
what about
being
the width?
wider?
Now we got a long skinny box, right? That's not a lot of area. this is the people you get to share it with, the friends and the family and the people you get to support and give back to, right? You create opportunity. You root yourself in gratitude so you can understand the people to your left and right. And now I believe it's your job to share it with them, expose them to it so they can increase their opportunities, so they never leave their feet on the ground and they keep their gratitude. My job, I believe in, I'm a utilitarian, right? This is a philosophy concept. Increasing the ultimate world happiness. There was some world happiness meter, some arbitrary meter in the world. If my actions are going to raise it, I want to do that. If they're going to diminish it, I'm not going to do that. So if it benefits me and hurts 5 others, I'm not going to do it. But if it benefits 5 others and it may take time out of my day, that sounds like a win, right? So if I realize in every moment that I'm with a cadet at a highly adaptable state of their mind, right? High brain plasticity, they're thinking, they're growing, they don't know quite yet who they are. They haven't lived on their own, they haven't cooked their own meals, right? I was the same. I was no different. There's a moment that you realize how precious this moment in time is. They are, and I'm teaching firsties right now, they are about to go create everything that they are. But you've met people you haven't seen 5 years, 10 years, 20 years since graduation. You're like, yes. Oh my gosh, you're such a different person, right? Yes. That time when they leave the academy is when they really find themselves, right? So I don't take for granted the conversations that I have, the moments I share with them in the classroom. I tell them my gratitude every day. Thank you for letting me do what I love. I say it to them almost every single day. Thank you for allowing me to be here. They're like, I have to be here. But that's not the demeanor that I address it with, right? So root myself in gratitude, and then I just pour into them as much as I physically can. Maybe it's selfish of me. In fact, maybe I do it for myself. Maybe I do it because, right? Think about it this way. I realize that pouring into people actually makes me happier. It really does. So maybe I pour into so many people because it makes me happier. What if everyone was that selfish? If they actually knew what makes them happy? How many people go create massive success in their life, but they don't ever give back.
Right.
And they find out, later on, they create these companies, they scale these things, and then they come back and they go, I really want to give back to my Air Force Academy. I really want to come back and teach in the classroom. Heck, I remember sitting in the Next Gen Advisory Council meeting.
Yes.
You and I were in there with, individuals highly successful, far more successful than I. And many of them were saying, all I want to do is come back to the academy and teach.
Right.
Gosh, what a moment for me to realize and to be introspective on the fact that I can't take this for granted. They can do all these things, have all this success. People are oftentimes trying to chase someone on a ladder and try to be like them and have their success. And really, they're just trying to do what I do every day. And they want to do it for free.
Yeah.
I get paid to do this job.
Right.
What a blessing that is. And so those are the moments that help you to sink your feet, your heel, dig your heels in and say, I'm here.
Right.
Gosh, imagine me as a 2 degree and you told me you're going to be at the Air Force Academy teaching the exact subject you want to teach, finance and investments. I'd be like, that's the dream come true. Well, I can't be here now and forget about that because then I'm going to miss this moment. Right. And I'm going to move on from this moment and wish I had it back. Don't put yourself in that position.
You said something really interesting. It was about, I think it was something to the fact of you can't have something extrinsic, like chasing some kind of like opportunity and make you happy, right? It won't fulfill in like an intrinsic unhappiness or a hole or something. So how does that translate, I think, as you're helping to lead others and help others to think that way as they progress up? I know you talked about being rooted in gratitude, but is there more to it than the gratitude piece, right? Like, how do you also make sure that you're thinking about it, the intrinsic pieces?
Yeah. So I think that, I have a great opportunity while I'm here. I get the opportunities to work with and see a lot of, our recruits coming into the campus, and I get to speak with them, their families. I get to see the excitement that they have to eventually one day, hopefully arrive at the Air Force Academy. I get to work with a lot of cadets every single day, thankful to do it. And I get to see a lot of cadets. Sometimes the attitude changes.
Right.
The gratitude that they once felt becomes, at times, becomes skeptical. It becomes challenging. They can't see the forest above the trees. They're caught up in that moment. But I also work with a lot of grads. I'm thankful to work with the Bolt Brotherhood, and I'm thankful to work with the Next Gen Advisory Council and have a lot of touch points to our grads. And I've never yet met a grad that is not grateful that they had gone through the Air Force Academy. They had graduated from the Air Force Academy. I've never met one that regretted that experience.
Right.
I know a lot of recruits that are excited as hell to be here. I know a lot of cadets that are questioning their decisions at times. But I know a lot of grads that would do anything to ensure that their loved ones or other people know about the Air Force Academy and what it did for them in their lives. And so what I ask of them is just to reflect back and remember themselves and how excited they were to have the opportunity to earn that appointment, to be one of the, 10 perhaps, applications that had the opportunity to say that they were accepted. And then they were going to attend the Air Force Academy. Remember that pride they felt when they got their congressional nomination, right? Imagine the feeling their parents feel when they dropped them off at I-Day, right? All of those feelings, they're real. You can't let them dissipate so quickly.
Well, I mean, Cap, this has been amazing. There's a couple more questions I want to ask you. The first one is, because you're so passionate and obviously you take care of yourself, how do you fill your glass every day so that you can pour into others? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, for me, I have to stay busy. And that's the part of me that, when I was younger, I was smaller. I think that's never changed. I have to remain busy. I tell people all the time, if they apply, because, we've all had that experience of leaving the Air Force Academy and realizing, wait, the people at the Air Force Academy are really fantastic. They are such high quality people, intellectually, emotionally, right? In all ways. You go into society, it can be a little sobering, a little like, you're like, whoa, we are not at the Air Force Academy anymore. These people don't operate on the same frequency. That's not within our service. That's just in life. That's going around day to day. So what I tell my cadets all the time, you have proven to yourself that you can do this. You can commit to your goals. You can complete these long hours, these long days. Life will only get easier in terms of your time commitments. Now, kids and things like that could change that. Right. But at the end of the day, they've proven to themselves they can do it. I challenge them to continue on that trajectory when they graduate, not to let off the gas and continue to find things that actually make them passionate. Okay. It's so easy for me to wake up every day with this passion, with this, desire to do what I do because I love what I do. It doesn't feel like work. So, biggest things for me in order to stay ahead, right? Whether that be health, whether that be, right, my sleep, whether that be my accomplishments, whatever it may look like, your leadership ability, I have to wake up and accomplish something. Wake up in your day and accomplish a task. I like waking up before everyone else. I did start doing that as a cadet. I'd finish football practice and realize I have no mental capacity. I cannot do homework. It is 8 p.m. and I am exhausted. So what did I do when I was exhausted?
Went to bed.
I went to bed. I put on my eye mask, my earplugs, and slept like a little baby angel, right? My hands crossed probably over my chest, right? And people used to make fun of me. Why are you always in bed at 8 p.m.? Well, why are you always in bed when I'm up at 4 a.m.? I don't know, right? What I realized was there's a time of day that no one can schedule anything on my schedule. No one's scheduling anything from 4 to 7. It's just the reality. So if you wake up early in the morning and you accomplish tasks. Now I'm not waking up at 4 anymore. Usually it's about 5. Okay. But I accomplish tasks early in my day. I get ahead of my day and I prioritize fitness. I prioritize my health. I prioritize my sleep. We can't possibly learn, lead, network, meet people, accomplish. We're going to get injured. We're not helping ourselves. So
for less money though, we can do eye masks because I also sleep with an eye mask. It's game changer.
$3 on Amazon, right? Like this is easy stuff, right? I love classical conditioning. The idea that earplugs, eye mask means sleep. Earplugs, eye mask means sleep. Eventually you put in your earplugs, your eye mask, and what does your body do? Goes to sleep. Your brain turns off. It stops thinking because that's your routine. So I go to bed early, I wake up early, and I love to accomplish tasks early on in my day. By the time I arrive in the classroom, we're a couple hours in, right? Yes. The brain is operating, we're fully awake, we're ready to go. So I challenge people that if they want to achieve more in their life, they need to learn how to achieve more in a day. And once you learn how to achieve more in a day, learn how to achieve more in a week. And now can you make it sustainable? Right. Some people have, they're 75 hard. They can do these things for a period of time. Their New Year's resolutions. We love the gym on, in January, the first week of January.
And then March, everyone gets the gym back.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden the gym is empty by February, right? We know how that goes. So it's like, do you actually mean this or do you think that you want to do it? Right. So I think if you can learn how to accomplish more in one day, then do it again the next day and then repeat it the next day. But in order to do that, you have to be pursuing something that is yours. It can't because my family wants me to. It'll never be sustainable. It can't be because someone else thinks it. It can't be because I saw it on the internet. It has to be because Navir Wakowitz wants to do this. Right. She wants to do this for her life. And so Cap wants to be this person. I want to strive for more and be the best version of myself. My mom used to tuck me into bed every single night when I was a little kid, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. And she always said, hey, Garrett, the only thing you can do is be the best person you can be. That's all you can do. That's your sphere of influence. So I try my best to be the best person I can be every day. That way I can be consistent and people can always look to me and know what you see is what you get. You know that if I hop on the call, if I show up in the classroom, you know exactly what you're going to get from me. I'm not going to waver in that. Right. And I think that's worth a lot so that someone can look to you and be admired by you. And hopefully you can exhibit referent power. Right.
Well, I would ask you, what would you recommend to others and what they can do to be better leaders every day? But it sounds like you might give them the same example you just gave, because you're going to practice what you preach. Is there anything else you might offer then for our, I mean, you do this with the cadets regularly, but just for anyone listening as they're trying to develop themselves as a leader or be a better, more referent leader, what else might you offer that they can do each day themselves just to turn that dial a little bit?
Find who you really are. You can read all the books. You can read all the headlines. You can hear from me right now. You can hear from everyone else on this podcast. But if it's not you, it won't be true. You won't be able to make it sustainable. It won't be consistent. You will not be able to replicate those actions. Okay, I love football, so I love football analogies. You can be Nick Saban and Bill Belichick and have success by not being a player's coach, by being a little bit of a little rough around the edges. Or you can be Sean McVay and Dabo Swinney, who, if you don't know any of those people, they are younger in personality and in age, right? They have handshakes with their players. That's who they are. Don't try to be the other one, though. Right. If Nick Saban tried to be cool with his players and have handshakes, and
they'd be like, "What's happening? This guy is falling."
Now you're fake. Now you're just fake. Right. So either one can prove to be successful, but you got to find who you are. And so if you don't know who you are, stop telling other people who they are. Right? You have time to go. Your glass isn't full yet. Stop pouring it out. Right? Fill this thing to the top. It doesn't mean be selfish. It's the most selfless thing you could ever do is to pour into yourself, fill your glass so that you have an abundance to give to others. If you give yourself a full glass and learn how to make it, replenishing, right? This is we're talking like Red Robin fries here, like truly bottomless glass that we can pour from. If you find a way.
Do you eat Red Robin fries?
I actually have not had that since I was a cadet.
Okay, I was going to say.
But I'm not opposed to eating unhealthy here and there, right? It's all about calorie deficit. So I just got to work out more, I guess. But anyway, so my point is, if you don't know who you are, go find that first. Right. That's the most important thing.
How do they start? What's the first step in that? Because you just said if you can't read, you can read all the books, but if you're not this person, that's not you. How do you find out who you are?
You find out who you are by finding out what you actually care about. Learn what you really care about. Think about the times you're at peace. Think about the moment. If you could do anything in the world, money didn't matter. What would you be doing? Okay, it sounds really cliche. The reason I teach finance, I teach investments, is to provide, I believe that finance is a tool to allow you to be happy. I would never subsidize happiness for money. I believe that if you have your finances together and they're squared away and you are investing properly and doing all those things to take care of you, your life, your family, your stability, you can be present where your feet are. And now you can make decisions based off of what you really want to do. If you find what it is that you are passionate about, we'll find a way to monetize it later. I truly believe that. I think that we have a role for everyone in this life. Whatever it is that you really care about, find a way to be the best at it. Stop being complacent with being, average. I don't care what it is. I don't care what your job is. Go be the best at it. And you will find a way to monetize it. I've seen an individual, this is a silly story, but I learned so much from it. There was an individual who reached out. He's a content creator. He does videography work. I actually don't remember the gentleman's name, but he was reaching out every single day to Tyreek Hill. He wanted a video. Now, Tyreek Hill is not someone we're going to resemble in terms of our leadership qualities. That is not what I'm saying in this conversation. However, he was reaching out to Tyreek Hill because he was his biggest fan, and he wanted to film videos, take videos of Tyreek Hill to create cool content, cool videos, hype videos, etc. One day, Tyreek Hill's manager saw the message and told him. He said, "I'll come out for free. I will come out for free and do this for you." And what I learned in my life throughout my time so far, and how I have so much more to learn as I go forward, is if you're willing to invest yourself for free, the person that does more than they're paid for will soon be paid for more than they do. If you are willing to put yourself out there and prove to others that they need you, once they realize they want you, now you can charge them for it. So what he did is say, "I'll come out for free on my dime, nothing to it." Well, okay, sure. This kid wants to come out for free and work with me and create videos for me. Sounds fantastic. Well, then he does such a good job that he's like, "Dude, I want to hire you." Oh, well, now it's going to cost you, right?
Right.
That individual ended up getting in trouble by the NFL because Tyreek Hill took his phone out of his hand, did a backflip with it, and created one of the coolest videos ever seen on, in terms of a game day touchdown celebration. That individual has now gone on to make tons and tons of money. He runs his own company. Right. It's only happened like 2 years ago.
Wow.
The point in that story is he offered himself for free to show off his talents. But first, you have to invest in yourself. You have to get great at something. Yeah. Get great at something. Figure out what it is you really want to do and offer yourself for free. And once people realize that they want you, now you can charge them for it, right? Charlie Jackson, football coach at Air Force Academy.
Class 2000.
Grad as well. Perfect. Class of 2000. He told me a story. He was in Los Angeles Air Force Base. He was at Los Angeles Air Force Base. His dream was to coach in the NFL. He wanted to coach the highest levels. Now you can go coach at a high school, get paid a little bit of money, and then spend decades to work your way up. No, that wasn't what Coach Jackson wanted to do. So he offered to be a free intern at UCLA. I'm going to work for free. And he happened to just sit next to a couple other unpaid interns. One named Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers.
Wow.
The other is the current GM for the Washington Commanders. Those were the 3 unpaid interns in UCLA's office. Well, he offered himself for free. He tried to show them that they need him. Once they realized they wanted him, now they needed to hire him.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up on a quick path coaching at the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
Right? He's now coached many other places here. He's now come back to Air Force. Why do they always come back to Air Force? It's because they love it here.
Yeah, it's
There's
special.
something about this place that's special. It's the same reason you're back here, the same reason I am too.
Right.
So I really challenge everyone to find what it is they truly love and find a way to be the best at that. Whatever it may be, there's a way to monetize it.
This is amazing. Was there anything that we didn't touch on today that you want to share with our listeners, Cap?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. As we wrap up today's conversation, I keep coming back to Cap's reminder. Don't take for granted the things that matter most. That lesson first struck him in the hardest way, when he thought he'd lost his brother, and it's become the driving force behind how he lives and leads today. Cap also shared another truth worth carrying with us. Be the best version of yourself, not someone else's version of you. That conviction shows up in how he teaches cadets, how he respects others regardless of rank, and how he approaches every day with passion and gratitude. So here's the takeaway. Leadership isn't about chasing titles or timelines. It's about showing up authentically, valuing every moment, and lifting up the people around you. The question we can all ask ourselves today is, what or whom am I taking for granted? And how can I choose to lead with more gratitude and authenticity starting right now? Thank you for joining us for this edition of Long Blue Leadership. If Cap's story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll find Long Blue Leadership on all your favorite podcast platforms. We don't want you to miss what's ahead this season. I'm Navira Walkowitz, class of 99. Until next time.